Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1. Devin Allen, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation today will be delivered by Jonathan Pena of Church on the Hill in Mansfield. Thank you so much for coming out today. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Judge Whitley, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. Let's pray. Jesus, we love you, Lord. Lord, I pray right now, Lord Jesus, that you would you'd arm us with wisdom. Father, we would understand who we represent and what we represent, Lord Jesus. Lord, I pray, Father God, as we present our issues and our things, Lord, I pray that that pride and ego would be left at the door. Lord, I pray that Proverbs chapter 3, 5, and 6 would be about us, Lord Jesus. Lord, as we begin to acknowledge you, Lord, in all your ways, Father God, you would begin to guide us and direct our paths. Father, we just thank you so much for this time. Lord, we bless this county, Lord, right now in your holy and your precious name. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. We're going to have to do something about this. I got people, it sounds like I got people whispering in my ear while we're saying the pledges. 3 of them. Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have one comment on the, or one change on the, or one correction, excuse me.
Yeah, we've got all of those. It's just going to be a matter of when we hear them.
Here we go. We'll start over again. We're going to take things out of order once again this morning. Prior to us going into the administrator section and hearing from Vinny Tenasia, we're first going to go to item A5 of the administrator's office. That's a tax abatement agreement between Tarrant County and Winter LLC. As it relates to that, there is a new copy of that tax abatement in your resolution in your red folder this morning. There were just some minor changes that we made last night on this yet. So we'll be taking that out of order. Once we do that, then we are going to then go to the briefing item and ask Vinny to make his comments and his presentation, and then we will go into our particular section. Thank you, Your Honor.
Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of September the 29th. Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Fickus?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. We have a couple of proclamations today. Commissioner Brooks, I believe you have a proclamation.
I do, Your Honor, and it is in recognition of Indigenous Peoples Day in Tarrant County. And it reads, whereas a growing list of cities, state governments, and institutions of learning now recognize Indigenous Peoples Day as creating a path toward healing, reconciliation, and an accurate representation of state and local history. And whereas Tarrant County has been home to indigenous peoples since time immemorial, including the Caddo and Wichita tribes, whose settlements bordered the Trinity River, and seasonal encampments of the Lipan Apache, Kiowa Apache, and Comanche tribes. And whereas Tarrant County has a responsibility to to correct the systemic racism towards indigenous people in Texas and the United States, and to protect the cultural history of its residents. And whereas Tarrant County is the proud home of two of the largest and longest-running powwows in the state of Texas, and has great respect for the deep-rooted indigenous history of the area, which includes figures like Quanah Parker, numerous sacred indigenous sites, and historic locations. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Tarrant County affirms its willingness to participate in annual Indigenous Peoples' Day celebrations and activities, encourages its public schools to include the teaching of Indigenous peoples' history, and encourages other businesses, organizations, and public institutions to recognize Indigenous Peoples' Day. Be it further resolved that we, the Commissioners' Court of Tarrant County, do hereby proclaim the second Monday in October as Indigenous Peoples' Day in Tarrant County, and firmly commit to continue efforts to promote the well-being and growth of its American Indian and Indigenous community. In witness whereof, we have hereunto set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 6th day of October, 2020. And with that, Your Honor, I move approval of this proclamation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Fickus?
Yes.
All right, Commissioner Fickus, you're going to have to get with the program here.
Well, they keep unmuting me, or they continue to mute me. The system is.
We'll work on that. You just keep,
Okay.
Don't make a whole lot of noise in between, and they probably won't do that. Motion passes unanimously.
I'd like to welcome to the podium the following persons to receive this proclamation. Leroy Strongcloud, Diana Parton Smith, Deborah Mendoza, Artemio Elizondo, Natalia Montoya, Albert Nungare, Austin Jordan, and Jorge Segura.
I'd like to thank you, Judge Whitley, and the commissioners for this. It's been a long time coming, and my ancestors were a big part of the history of this county, and my history is now your history. You raise your families here, your children here, and you could teach them the history of the original inhabitants of this county. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for being here.
Thank you.
Next, Commissioner Johnson, I see that you have a proclamation for the National 4-H Week.
I do, Your Honor. If you would read that into the record and if you would present that for me, I would appreciate it.
I will be glad to. Whereas the Tarrant County Commissioners Court is proud to honor the 4-H Youth Development Program of the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Services for 113 years of providing experience-based education to youth throughout the Lone Star State, and whereas this admirable program provides learning and growing experiences for the whole child, including head, heart, hands, and health, and helps young Texans to acquire knowledge, develop life skills, and form attitudes to enable them to become self-directed, productive, and contributing members of our society, and whereas a vital component of the program is youth-adult partnership provided through hundreds of adult volunteers who generously dedicate their time, talents, and resources to the youth in Tarrant County. And whereas Tarrant County 4-H serves over 600 youth through long-term, year-round programming and community clubs, and an additional 3,000 who participate in short-term activities and events. And whereas throughout its proud history, the 4-H program has developed positive role models for countless Texans, and through its innovative and inspiring programs, continues to build character and to instill the values that have made our state strong and great. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, do hereby proclaim October 4th through 10th, 2020, as National 4-H Week in Tarrant County, and commend the 4-H Youth Development Program of Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service and the many volunteer men and women who have made the program a success, in witness whereof we have hereunto set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 6th day of October 2020.
I move for its approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Fickus?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously, and I believe Courtney Davis is here with the Tarrant County Extension Director as well as many others, so y'all come on down, and Courtney, if you'll introduce the folks as y'all get to the microphone, and then I believe that Amelia Morrow is going to make a few comments after that.
Good morning, and thank you
Now,
so
I'll
much.
tell you what, let me come down here and
Okay.
we'll present the flag and get the pictures taken, and then we'll everybody introduce themselves. Who's Amelia? You're Amelia. So we'll get in here, and here we go. Okay, come on, scooch in, I won't bite it. Most of the time. So this is one time you can stick your tongue out and smile. Go ahead and introduce everybody.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you so much for your time this morning. And Commissioner Johnson, thank you so much for your continued support in getting this proclamation done for us today. Today I have with me several of our Tarrant County 4-Hers. I'll allow them to introduce themselves. But I also have our new County Extension Agent for 4-H and 4-H and Youth Development, Jacqueline Frampton. She joined our team in the middle of all of the COVID mess in April. So Jackie's here with us, as well as Jordan Peldiak, who is our county agent with the Cooperative Extension Program based out of Prairie View A&M University. Jordan is our county agent for 4-H and Youth Development as well.
Excellent.
Hi, I'm Amelia Morrow, president of the Tarrant County 4-H Youth Council. I just want to say thank you to the court for supporting all the youth of Tarrant County throughout our 4-H careers. It has been great being in 4-H, and 4-H has impacted my life by giving me the opportunity to try new projects I've never done before, make new friends, and to become a better leader and to become a good speaker. I am so thankful for 4-H and all the things it has done for me. Thank you all.
Thank you, Amelia. We appreciate it.
Hi, I'm the Tarrant County Secretary, and I'm with Texas Wranglers 4-H Club.
And your name is?
And my name is Valerie Morrow.
Thank you, Valerie.
My name is Caitlin Lavender. I am the Tarrant County Youth Council Vice President, and I'm with Keller 4-H.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Now, where's Brent?
Brent couldn't make it with us today.
So we got everybody introduced.
Yes, sir.
Jordan, did I see you come up here?
Yes, sir.
Courtney introduced me though.
Oh, okay. All right. One other thing that I would like to do at this point in time is, Mr. Beecham, regardless of you being a part of the deal, some way or another, your department managed to earn the 2020 Achievement of Excellence in Procurement Award. And I want to congratulate your department on their winning this award in spite of you. And it's, you know, folks, we can joke about this, but Jack and his department do a fantastic job. There's only 46 agencies in the state of Texas that have received this award, and when you stop and think of the cities, the counties, you stop and think of all of the governmental entities that have purchasing departments, that's saying a lot. There's only 40 counties in the country that have received this award, and I can tell you for sure that there's 3,069 counties in this country. So this is something to be very proud of, and I really want to congratulate you and the members of your department, and you do a tremendous job, and I know how important it is to you and how much you take this very, very seriously. And so as much as we may joke about it from time to time, I appreciate everything you do.
Thank you very much.
Unfortunately, once again, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we were not able to invite and bring into here today the folks that are celebrating their anniversaries in October. But I do want to make an announcement or show a little video that we've shown, and then at least acknowledge them on the screen. So at this time.
Good morning. Because of the COVID-19 virus, we have, and the restrictions that it's placed upon our meetings, I'm sorry to say that we're going to have to postpone our employee recognition. That is one of my favorite times of the month, and so I'm sorry that we're not going to be able to do that this month, but I promise you that when everything gets back to normal or whatever our new normal is, we'll begin those again, and we'll make up for those meetings and for those months that we've had to miss. Again, I want to thank you personally for what you do for Tarrant County, especially during this time when we've had to face the challenges of the COVID-19 virus. Our employees have always stood up for the test, and you've done exactly the same thing during this time frame. You're what makes Tarrant County such a great place to live, to work, and to raise our family. Again, thank you very much, and I look forward to getting back to our routine of being able to recognize our valued employees on that first Tuesday of every month. Thank you.
I need to get my eyes, I need to get we need to get that bigger, or I need to get microphone.
That's a total of 535 years of service.
I can read that number.
Just tell me wrong.
Well, again, I am very much looking forward, and folks, once we can start bringing them back in here, you can kind of expect them to be in here every week for a while, because we're going to make up for those folks that for those months that we didn't do it. So you can bring a snack or bring a breakfast or whatever, but we're gonna recognize these folks for the tremendous job that they do in Tarrant County. I never cease, as I get a chance to travel to other counties or to attend meetings. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the employees and the jobs that they do day in and day out as they serve our citizens, as they protect and look at the tax dollars that they are responsible for. And I'm very, very proud of them. So I'm looking forward to getting back to being able to tell them that in person on a monthly basis. I think there may be a couple of announcements. I know Commissioner Allen, I think you may have had a couple of announcements.
Yes, thank you, Judge. Well, last week I had announced the upcoming deadline to complete the census, which due to some legal decisions has been extended back to its, well, not really extended, to its original COVID deadline date. So just a reminder that if you have not yet had an opportunity to complete the census, to do so by October 31st. So right now, the latest numbers, I believe that Texas has a self-completion rate of 62.5 and Tarrant has 68.6. So it's important to remember that the money follows the people, not the need. It's important that every person living in Tarrant County be counted. Additionally, most of you know the last day to register to vote was yesterday, and as I understand it, it was a very active process at the Elections Administration. Of course, early voting kicks off next Tuesday, October 13th, but this coming Thursday evening, so October 8th, just in a few days, I will be hosting a election information virtual town hall. Will be hosted on Facebook, and Hyder will be joining me. We'll have a robust discussion about the upcoming election and what people should expect. I know that there's been a ton of information out there with various legal rulings and orders and all of that, and so I can totally understand how folks would be confused about what to expect. So that will be this Thursday evening, 5:30 to 6:30 p.m., and you can view it at Commissioner Devin Allen on Facebook. And then if you have any questions that you would like to submit ahead of time, please email them to Commissioner Precinct, the number 2 at tarrantcounty.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anyone else have anything to announce or say at this time? Okay, then court members, you have before you our consent agenda. Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Fickus?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Manius?
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we are now going to go to the administrator section to item A5, and Ms. McMillan is here to address the court at this time.
Good morning, Judge, Commissioners. We're requesting today that the Commissioners Court approve a resolution and tax abatement agreement providing for Tarrant County participation with the City of Fort Worth in the abatement of ad valorem taxes on the eligible real and personal property improvements made by Winter LLC for the expansion and development of a new data center facility on its current data center campus in Alliance Gateway Park. Said abatement being for a period of 10 years at a maximum tax abatement of 60% as it relates to Tarrant County taxes and 40% as it relates to Tarrant County Hospital District taxes. The attached agreement provides for a new 150,000 square foot data facility building on the north end of the campus at Alliance Gateway. This will be the 6th building on the site and is estimated to be in excess of $200 million in investment. Based on that, we're anticipating that the total 10-year tax abatement would be approximately $2.8 million for the county and $1.8 million for the hospital district. Again, because this is in the same reinvestment zone where we had done previous tax abatements, the terms of the agreement must match the previous tax abatement agreements that we had done. That's why we have the county and hospital district included in this request.
Any questions?
Move approval.
I move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Fickus?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I want to be sure, Paul, that you thank Facebook for their continued support of our community, and they've been excellent community properties, and we're glad to be able to help them in this endeavor.
Thank you. Thank you to the entire court, all the commissioners, and you, Judge Williams, for your continued support. I'll be sure to convey that to look forward to getting this project.
Thank you. Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Member of the court, if we can now go to the briefing agenda, and I'm going to ask Vinny to come forward and begin that process. But prior to that, over the last several weeks, we've had some comments made in court as it relates to medical degrees and issues dealing with the authority of the public health director. I'm going to ask Vinny to come up and talk a little bit at first about his credentials. But I also want to remind the court of this. For over 22, almost 23 years, the county's public health director has not been a medical doctor. It has been a person who is skilled and educated in public health. And we have also had medical directors and health authorities which have been medical doctors. We have been constantly in conformance with state law as it relates to that. And it has served our county well, our structure. We need to always remember that public health is much more than just medical and health authority related activities. We do things such as inspections of restaurants. We do inspections of water wells. We do inspections of sewer issues in the unincorporated area. We do swimming pools. We do a lot of different things that public health encompasses. They are much more than simply medical-related issues. And so that's why this county has chosen to have a public health director that is not a medical doctor, but who is a professional in the overall public health community. And so with that, I'm going to ask, before Vinny starts his presentation, if he'll just make a few comments.
Before Vinny does that, I want to state unequivocally that Vinny doesn't have to defend his credentials to anybody. When we hired Vinny as Director of Public Health, we did a national search. We got applications from people from all over America for that job. And we hired this man because he was the best qualified and the best fit for public health director in Tarrant County, Texas. I support him. I supported him at the time, and he has done nothing in the years that he has been here to make me question the act of hiring him or question my support for him.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Go for
Well,
it.
and I'll echo those same comments. We're very pleased.
Thank you, Your Honor.
This
I
is,
appreciate it.
you came, I guess, right as Ebola hit.
Yes, sir.
And you've gotten the opportunity to help us through the pandemic. And I have been very appreciative of the job that you've done and agree with everything that Commissioner Brooks just said.
Thank you, Your Honor, and I appreciate the support of this court. I just wanted to kind of clarify my role. So I am the public health director for the county, and as such, I do not practice medicine in that role. My degrees are MBBS, which is a foreign medical degree. It is a medical degree equivalent to MD here in the U.S., but I studied in India. They follow the old British system, so the nomenclature is different. And I have a Master's of Public Health from Eastern Kentucky University here in the United States. Master's of Public Health is really what is, qualifying me as a public health professional. And my role as the public health director is an administrative role as the department's director. We do have a separate medical director, Dr. Catherine Colquitt, and she's also our health authority. She's the medical doc. She's an infectious disease specialist. I consult with her all the time. The health department's medical operations, the clinics, they run under her medical direction, under her license and under her standing orders. So all of the clinical operations operate under that. And on health matters, we conduct with or consult with our health authority on a regular basis. And the way the structure is set up, even though she's my medical equal, if you will, within the department, under the structure, her position reports to me because I'm the department head. Now that structure is not unusual. We have close to 3,000 health departments across the country. And if you look across, there are many examples like that where they have a health director and a medical director. Now, are there departments where they have medical directors as the health director? Sure. Yeah, those examples are there as well. But, a lot of places can't even afford a medical director full time. They have these volunteer health authorities and volunteer health directors or medical directors that help out by signing those medical orders so that the health department director can actually run the department and their clinical services under those medical orders. So, I am the spokesperson for the health department. That's why you see me here in Commissioner's Court. That's why you see me giving public health guidance. I want to be very clear because it was called to question, why am I giving you all medical advice and issuing medical orders? We're not doing that. You all understand that, but I just want to be very clear for the public that what I do is I provide public health guidance. A medical advice or a medical order will come from an individual provider to the person who's seeking care from that provider. So even when Dr. Colquitt comes out, she's giving you public health advice. She's not even issuing medical guidance at that point or giving medical orders. Now, in her role, when she's in the clinic, she is giving medical care to people and gives medical advice to people and writes prescriptions and orders for them. And under her role as the health authority, occasionally she can issue a control order, which is a public health tool, not necessarily a medical tool. So those are some of the clarifications on why I'm up here talking about public health issues and what is my role. My role is the administrative role of a public health department director, which is very different than what the health authority does. And we work hand in hand pretty much every day on a variety of issues, including COVID-19. So that's all I have, and I'll be happy to go into the briefing and go over some of the stuff that we've been seeing. So, as a reminder, I took out the West Nile slides because that data is declining, and we're happy to see that go away. Situational awareness from a COVID standpoint, U.S. and the world is in another upswing of cases. Definitely, we're starting to see a surge occur. Even in Tarrant County, we're starting to see a very clear surge emerge, and I'll show you some on the graphs. We're over 52,000 cases now, 675 plus deaths, and 45,000 plus recoveries. Lately, our numbers have been increasing. On the right, the chart shows the total number of tests conducted. We are number 4, which is a little disconcerting because we've lost our number 3 spot. We're the number 3 county from a population standpoint. So there's some work that we're going to need to be doing, but definitely we're kind of hanging on and making progress there. U.S. numbers, like I said, they're starting to surge again. If you see on the top chart, there's a clear upward trend line for the last almost a month. And I wanted to point out the chart for Texas at the bottom, and we'll have a bigger figure. They have stopped declining and starting to trend up again. The darker red is actually the last 14 days, and that's a clear upward spike shown for Texas as well. Here's the picture in a little bit more detail, and as you can see, the bars kind of, sort of flattened out and then got bigger, so that trend line is starting to trend up. Positivity rate had a little spike for Texas. I think last week it was 6.15. Then towards the weekend we hit 6.45, and then we're back down to 6.23. So we're just kind of hanging on. It's good that overall trend seems to be down, but we're not going lower. As you can see, for the last 1 month, we're sort of plateaued out at this 6% range, which is a little concerning because we should be seeing downward continuous declines. Here's the school situation. For 5 weeks now, Texas schools have been open. I think the earliest ones opened around July 27th. And in the short span of 5 weeks, we've had 9,857 cases reported. Last week we had 7,700 or so, and we added another 2,273. That's a 45% increase in 1 week. This is across the state of Texas. The important thing to remember here is that week over week, for the last several weeks, we've had close to 50% increase every week in the number of cases occurring in the schools related to students and staff. Tarrant County is no exception. Our schools have been open since late July, and some of the bigger ones started opening. I know Fort Worth ISD opened partially this week. Arlington ISD opened in a hybrid model this past week. But our cases have been increasing. As of yesterday, we had 859 cases in the school setting and 5,061 contacts identified from those cases. And again, we're just opening these larger school districts. So, caution ahead is all I can tell you. Our data is clearly showing that we're in a spike, in an upsurge. And the disease is starting to accelerate in the community. So these conditions are not conducive to have large gatherings, which schools by design, if you bring a lot of people together, tend to be large gatherings. So there's caution in those plans as well. Here's all the trend data that's now, all indicators are starting to point up. Hospital capacity has been looked at quite a bit. Hospital trend was downwards and then flattened out in September. And as you can see, we're really starting to increase over the last 3 weeks or so. Now, if you look at all the occupied beds, that's the right chart, 10% of all the occupied beds are occupied by COVID. So one single illness is taking up 10% of the capacity of occupied beds. And if you look at total bed capacity, we're at about 7% occupied by COVID. Case trend, again, if you look at the trend over the last several weeks, it's been up. The last week's bar obviously needs a little bit more time to fill in because it takes a while for disease reports to come in. But the weeks before that, there's been a clear uptrend for the last 3-4 weeks. It's supported by positivity rate. If you look on the right, the bars are starting to look bigger, but if you look at the dotted line, which is the 7-day moving average trend line, certainly we've had a spike in that for the last several weeks. And it's not letting up. Over the weekend, we hit 12% positivity rate. I think we're back down to 11%. But overall, a multi-week trend in all indicators showing that we're surging back up. And COVID-like illness, which is an early indicator, it shows people who are seeking health care within an ER setting and have been ruled out for the flu, has been trending up for over a month. So that's usually our leading indicator telling us, if there's trouble brewing, and now it's being confirmed by all the other indicators. So what do we need to do? A lot of the strategies that we applied early on in the pandemic are not on the table at this point, but there are things that we're continuing to do, and they do succeed when people work together, is continuing to wear masks everywhere. Yesterday, CDC came out with some clarifying guidance about the ability of COVID to spread airborne. And they talked about that in indoor settings in particular, where the airflow may be more stagnant, there is the possibility of COVID going 6 feet or beyond, especially when there's no mask being used. So that's why it's very, very important to wear masks. Staying at home as much as possible, staying 6 feet away from others. So this is even more important now. There's some acknowledgement that there could be airborne spread. So we want to make sure we maintain as large a distance as possible. And avoid large group gatherings. That seems to be the key. It does tend to spread in larger groups. And then again, continuing to follow public health guidance And one of the reminders is that we're heading into major holiday season. So, for example, Halloween's coming up. Public Health has issued Halloween guidance last week. It's on our website. It got posted through our social media. And we'll be coming out with guidance for Thanksgiving and Christmas and all those other holidays. The key remains the safe. We want people to have a safe holiday and enjoy their holiday with their family and friends. We're going to do things a little bit differently. We're not going to have large gatherings that are unmasked and all those type of things because they tend to have outbreaks. We've seen throughout the summer with Memorial Day and other major holidays, people got together, just between family and friends, and then ended up having an outbreak. So that's kind of the basic gist of most of this guidance. And then there are nuances about Halloween, how to hand out candy safely and all those type of things. So we have that all covered, and we encourage the public to follow that guidance so that we can have a safe Halloween. That's all I have, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, Vinny, would you just give us a brief update on how some of the new efforts that you mentioned during last week's update, how those are moving along?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner, for that question. So the efforts are going well. We've had a lot of interest in our at-home testing kits. We're trying for a couple of weeks, a total about 50 kits a day available on all 7 days. And we've come pretty close to filling those on a routine basis. First couple of days were low as people didn't know about all of that. But now after we spoke last week, there's been a consistent interest. And part of the reason we had brought that on was because appointments go out or system goes down, and we had that issue yesterday. So our main appointment booking system went down for some reason, and it took our technology partners till this morning to figure out where the glitch was. So as a result, our online at-home appointments are going to be full because people could not book an appointment for a location, an in-person site. But the online system for at-home appointments is a separate tool, so that was up and running. So it helps out, it loads balance, that way nobody's going without a test that they needed. So it's going well. And then we've had a lot of questions and a lot of interest in learning about self-reporting. And as those reports start to come in, we'll try to get that data out to you all as well to see how that's going. But overall, our experience with the schools and our experience with, when we automated notified the cases through Everbridge has been great. That actually people go out and fill the online survey. So that gave us confidence that when we put a self-reporting tool out, there's going to be interest. But we'll continue to watch that and explore that further and come back to you with details.
Other questions for Vinny?
Vinny, I have a question. Do you have a chart on our death rate?
Yes, sir.
Is it increasing or?
Actually, if I should have put the link back. I think it's here. Oops. If I can get a click on the coronavirus.tarrantcounty.com, we can look at the chart. My understanding is it is not, sir. It's kind of flattened out over the last few weeks, but we can check that real quick. If you go to the mortality statistics tab on the, well, that's not the right link. See if we can click on that coronavirus.tarrantcounty.com or just type it in. There we go. And if we click on the mortality statistics tab, it should have the death rate chart. So just to kind of give you background, death rate is a lagging indicator. When people get hospitalized, it takes several weeks of them fighting and sometimes losing that battle. So this data shows up very late. So you can see the spike in the middle was like early August, and that was related to the early July spike in cases that we had. So right now, our deaths are looking pretty low. We're flattened out over the last few weeks. But again, if we head into a surge into the fall, we do expect that number to increase because it takes several weeks for that data to show. It's a lagging indicator, death data.
I would think that would be, kind of the ultimate test, the death rate.
Yes, sir. So we recommend that people look at all indicators together. I know everybody's got a favorite indicator, but it's a comprehensive picture that public health likes to look at, because otherwise you tend to miss a lot of information. If you're just looking at one indicator, you're going to miss a lot of relevant information in decision making.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions for Vinny? Thank you, Vinny.
Thank you.
So I'm going to go into the calls at this point in time. As we've got 3 phone calls. We've got some other folks here that want to speak, and then a couple of comments. So I'm going to start off with the phone call, and the first one is Mr. Robert Bucher.
Don't believe he's on.
Okay. Next is Rebecca Rogers.
Hi.
Rebecca Rogers, this is Judge Whitley, and we're at the point in the agenda for audience participation, and you had indicated you wish to address the court. So we'll start the clock 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
For several months now, we have been discussing each week and shedding light on the inept jobs of Tarrant County public health officials and them that have done in helping guide the county commissioners. On October 1st, it was reported via Fox 4 that North Texas officials are still dealing with backlogs and reporting of COVID-19 cases. For nearly 2 months now, the state of Texas has been releasing hundreds of backlogged COVID-19 cases, raising significant questions about the data being used to determine when schools and businesses reopen. Tuesday, Dallas County report included 480 cases from the undefined period of September, meaning they could be from the beginning of the month or more recent. The article went on to say, we'll report everything we get, whether it was April or May, or it was just last week, Hung said. The state has been releasing backlog cases since August with no clear outlook on when that will be resolved. The issue ranges from its former system being backlogged to communication gaps between its system and the language gaps used to report cases. Once again, this is clear evidence that the numbers being reported are not up to date or accurate. I decided to explore the inflated numbers for Tarrant County for the last 2 consecutive Mondays. On Monday, September 28th, recovered cases 43,272, deaths 653, new cases 170, and confirmed cases 45,851. Adding recovered, deaths, and active numbers together, you get 44,098, which does not equate to 45,851 confirmed cases. My well-educated background tells me that 44,098 are less than 45,841. Yesterday, October 5th, recovered cases were 44,861, deaths 672, new cases 601, and confirmed 48,275. Again, when added together, those numbers don't add up to 46,135. Once again, those numbers don't add up. 46,135 does not equate 48,275, and the numbers are off by 2,141. I can tell you, just like Collin County and Dallas County, Tarrant County numbers are not adding up either. Does the Texas Department of Health really know how many COVID-19 cases how many there are in the rest of the state? The numbers aren't right, they aren't real, and they shouldn't be used to determine public health policy. Your legacy is going to be remembered by how you handle this fabricated crisis. You're going to be remembered for the unconstitutional and tyrannical methods that you use to help keep your constituents from petitioning the court. You're going to be remembered as the judge that doesn't listen to reason or factional science, but pseudoscience, and who has perpetrated fraud on the citizens by attempting to convince the citizens of Tarrant County that Vinny Tenasia is a credible doctor and a credible authority on the topic of COVID-19, in which he is neither one. You and your commissioners have called him a doctor, Vinny Tenasia.
Time's up. Rebecca Rogers, we thank you for your comments. Next will be Janet Jackson.
Hello.
Good morning, Ms. Jackson. This is Judge Whitley. We're at the point on our agenda for audience participation. Please make any comments you wish to make. You have 3 minutes.
All right, thank you. I'm going to start again with Scripture. Can't ever get enough of it, especially during these times of lies and deceit. Proverbs 6:16 through 19. These 6 things that the Lord hates, yea, 7 are an abomination unto him: a proud look, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood, and a heart that deviseth wicked imaginations, feet that be swift in running to mischief, a false witness that speaketh lies, and he that hath soweth discord among brethren, which is exactly what has been happening. It has continued to happen week after week. This Commissioner's Court has taken every opportunity to fraudulently present Vinny Tenasia as a doctor. While he does have the credentials he listed, that does not equate to a doctor here, period. Secondly, he has practiced medicine without a license, and he has advised the court to also practice medicine without a license. On August 25th, he gave medical advice that hydroxychloroquine was a myth. That is not a myth. It has been used to successfully treat coronavirus for months now. It is even dated by Dr. Fauci as far back as 2005 in a study in which it was used for SARS-CoV-1. So, yet again, he has practiced medicine without a license, and this court has perpetuated that fraud. Secondly, prescribing a mask or telling the public to wear a mask is medical intervention. This has been done without informed consent. There are
1 minute remaining
to show that this has also been fraud that has been perpetuated on the court and on the people of Tarrant County. I've asked several weeks now about the positive batch tests that are as old as April and May, but no one is addressing the false positives or that batch tests from April or May are being reported today. Further, Mr. Whitley, you said you did not write this as a law. I took a picture at a store which posted a public government document that said that this was law by Judge Glenn Whitley with a $1,000 fine and a $500 fine for lack of implementation. Further, I'd like the court to investigate these codes. 18 U.S. Code 241, 18 U.S. Code 242, 18 U.S. Code 245, 18 U.S. Code 1962, 18 U.S. Code 1031.
Ms. Jackson, your time is up. Ms. Jackson, your time is up. Thank you for your call.
All right, thank you.
I'm going to give Mr. Bucher one more chance.
Forward to Judge Bucher.
Mr. Bucher, this is Judge Whitley. You had indicated you wish to address the court. You have 3 minutes.
Okay. Okay, on the Bill of Rights, Texas Constitution, Article 1, it says suspension of laws. No power of suspending laws in this state shall be exercised except by the legislation. So, in other words, we're going to keep going round and round with Governor Abbott, who cannot suspend any laws, cannot suspend any statutes per the Constitution, which covers everything. Everything. So I don't know why we're still going to. So you have the right to dissipate this at any point in time, but instead you keep playing this round and round game, and I don't even understand why. I don't get it. So the deprivation of life and liberty, property, et cetera, due cause, happiness, that's all out the door, because who cares about our lives and happiness and all that when we're all big boys and big girls and can do this as our physician independently would advise us. And to go back into Vinny, we're going to keep coming at him because he's giving us medical advice. Well, these numbers are up and these numbers are down and these numbers, and I'm not comfortable. Who cares if you're comfortable? Is Dr. Colquhoun comfortable? That's who we want to hear from. We want to see her. And we've been requesting it, but I guess, the people don't matter. So I guess we're just going to sit down somewhere and just take it, but we're not going to take that. So the bills of rights accepted from the powers of government involved to the guard against transgressions of the high power is herein delegated. We declare that everything in the bills of rights is expected out of the general powers of government and shall forever remain inviolate. All laws carried therein to follow provisions shall be void with the people. So we have the right to say, we're tired of your crap and we're not going to abide by it, and we don't have to legally. I mean, I know that, you've got people above you that are attorneys telling you, don't say this, don't say that. Well, that's called a puppet. So basically, Section 28 pretty much lays it out. Only way to be able to dissipate a law or anything like that has to be through legislation, not through Governor Abbott. So he can't.
1 minute remaining.
And take the 81 code and decide what I want to pick and choose per the Constitution, which covers everything below that. So we have the right to stop this, and you do too as well. I don't know if you just want to spend all that money by December. It makes no sense to me. When we can make the people happy, which is what they really want, and do it responsibly. But we definitely don't want to hear from Vinny no more. We're tired of hearing those lies. We're tired of hearing them, it's spiking up. It's leveling off. We have a baseline. We've been through this already. We've had baseline for 3 weeks. 3 weeks. And here we are again and again and again and again. I mean, what is it going to take? Well, I want to see the numbers at absolute zero. I'm sorry, there's no absolute zero, and the vaccine is not going to work. I can refuse the vaccine and it'll be just fine. And that's all right. So to wait for a vaccine that we can choose not to take, that's insane.
Mr. Bucher, your time is up. Thank you.
Yep.
Next is Amada Tosca.
Hello, good morning. My name is Amadia Tosca. First, I'd like to say, I heard that Vinny was hired to give false information to collect government funds. I texted the FBI on Facebook about Vinny's data. I don't trust Vinny, and I will continue to notify the FBI about Vinny's data until we get real answers. I think he's lying, and I want a Christian representative. Just to remind the courthouse that these laws do exist in the law books, and you could be held accountable if we, the people, choose to file a class action lawsuit. Section 66, limitation of liability for non-economic damages. In this section, economic damages means compensatory damages for any pecuniary loss or damage. however characterized for past, present, and future physical pain and suffering, mental anguish and suffering, loss of consortment, loss of companionship and society, disfigurement of physical impairment. Section 19, deprivation of life, liberty, property, etc. by due course of law. No citizen of this state shall be deprived of life, liberty, property, privileges, or immunities, or in any manner disfranchised except by the due course of the law by the land. Section 28, suspension of laws. No power of suspending laws in the state shall be exercised except by the legislature. Please do the right thing by the people in this county and end this mask mandate. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Doug Hines, followed by Judith Shelton, followed by Blanca Martinez. Mask up. Over the nose, yes, thank you. Over the nose, thank you. Please state your name and then you have 3 minutes.
Doug Hines, Keller, Texas. Good to be back. I had a real quick question that's kind of been burning my mind a little bit, and let me just pose it, and then it takes away time apparently, but is the declaration of emergency disaster have anything to do with availability of funds under the CARE Act?
No, not to the best of my knowledge. No, you're asking a broad question and there may be a specific.
Just wondered because it's, just wondered. From what's come up earlier today, you have to start, I think we all have to start asking ourselves, what's the goal here in terms of what are we shooting for? We have the mask mandate in effect here. Governor Abbott's got the rest of the restrictions on there. We have the restrictions on the business. What's our goal? When does this go away? Because the important statistics we have out here show that we are home free from this thing. And I've talked about this the last 2 weeks. So don't take my word for it. Let's talk about Dr. Mike Eden. He's the former VP Chief Science Advisor for Pfizer. He says not only is it over, but there's no science to support a second wave could happen at all. He talks about the false positive results from inherently unreliable COVID tests are being used to manufacture a second wave based on new cases. But the really important statistics on whether or not there's even a pandemic on at all or a second wave are 3: hospitalizations, ICU utilizations, and deaths. And here in Tarrant County, hospitalizations, only 10% of the hospital beds are from COVID patients that we just heard from Director Vinny this morning. ICU utilizations we haven't talked about, but I'm thinking if 10% of the hospital beds are COVID, then that's probably not a big deal either. But the deaths are the most important thing. Deaths are what matter. Deaths are flat. They're flat here in Tarrant County, and that should be really important statistic here. We've had 17 deaths since a week ago. Bad. Got that. It's bad. But it's just complete flatline. So
1 minute remaining.
What is our goal? Sorry?
1 minute remaining.
Yeah, so I asked, what's our goal? But Dr. Yeaton had particularly withering criticism of Professor Neil Ferguson, the Imperial College professor over in London, that upon which the governments all across the world launched this draconian lockdown and turning our societies into prison camps, essentially. And back on what Dr. Yeaton says, the doctor I'm talking about, he says that the original Professor Ferguson estimates back in March, February, 2.2 million deaths in America. We've had 209,000, less than 10% of that amount. Professor Ferguson estimated 100,000 COVID deaths in Sweden by June. They've had 5,800. And he estimated approximately 94% survival rate. The survival rate is 99.8%. So again, you got to ask, we've bent the curve. We've broken the curve. So let's just get this thing done. And I fully urge the court to eliminate the declaration of the emergency and revoke the order. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hines. Judith Shelton.
Good morning. Okay, for the past few weeks, numerous speakers have brought forth concerns regarding the health director, giving medical advice during his weekly presentations to this court. I believe that these are valid concerns, and I'm glad that the health director has finally given clarification on his medical background. The concern has not been with the health director's ability to do the job he has been hired for, but more with the ambiguity of his background. I am aware that the position he holds for the county does not require him to be a doctor, but he has been referred to in open court sessions as a doctor on more than one occasion. Videos posted within the last 6 months on WFAA.com, Channel 8 News, and official Facebook pages of both Arlington ISD and Tarrant County refer to the health director as Dr. Vinny Taneja. At no point until today he has clarified that he is or is not a doctor. I believe that because of this, the court has allowed the public to be misled into believing that any statements or recommendations made by the health director are in fact medical advice from a trained doctor licensed to practice medicine. Many statements made during the public health presentations and answers to questions posed by this court in response to those presentations would, without a doubt, be taken as being medical advice when the public is under the impression that the health director is a doctor. Again, I feel the concern is valid, and I'm glad that the health director has finally publicly corrected this. I hope that the court will no longer refer to health director as a doctor from this point forward, and I hope that Mr. Taneja will no longer allow himself to be referred to as such in any publications. The citizens deserve transparency, and the court should not allow misinformation to spread. Public servants work for the citizens, and I don't agree with the court's opinion that background information or credentials do not need to be given when the citizens are concerned about an issue. And I'm going to leave this proof here, where it says Dr. Taneja. Thank you.
Thank you. Blanca Martinez, followed by Sherrod Perry.
Good morning.
State your name and then you have 3 minutes.
Okay, my name is Blanca Martinez, and it doesn't cease to amaze me that every week we come back with the same stats, the same information, and all we get are excuses and getting away from the real issue. The real issue is that this is the United States of America, that we have a constitution that protects our rights. And this, not even being a pandemic, but even if there was a pandemic is determined by the amount of deaths. If you were able to view the White Coat Summit, some of the doctors there clearly stated that if they had told them that they were going to use numbers of infection rather than the deaths of the patient, that they would have laughed in their face. These are frontline doctors, real doctors. Why aren't we seeking the advice of medical physicians, of frontline doctors, that see these patients every day, that know medicine, and that absolutely love and care for their patients, and more importantly, for the freedom that we possess as the United States of America. People come from all over the world looking to live in America. They go through waters, they go through under bridges, they risk their lives every day to come to the United States of America. Why? Because of the freedom. I met a couple at the stockyards here recently. They came from Venezuela. They were in tears. They say, Miss Blanca, I am so afraid of what's happening in America. It is what we ran from, and we're seeing it right here in America. We're terrified that communism has come to America.
1 minute.
The most important thing that has to be considered here is our freedom. I want to read something very briefly, if I may. And I hope you will consider.
40 seconds.
We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. God bless you.
Sherrod Perry.
Sherrod Perry, good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so we've had mask mandates for over 3 months now, and I think I can say that they're working. They're doing exactly what they were intended to do, and they've trained us to be submissive. They're training us to see each other as these germ-ridden, filthy, disgusting creatures that need to be avoided. And they've further divided us between we have maskers versus anti-maskers. Just one more division among others going on this year. So this is not just a mask. We keep hearing that phrase, it's just a mask, just wear the mask. And what I'm telling folks is no, this is a brick in the wall. Okay, it's just another brick in the wall. And the wall I'm referring to is a prison wall that is being built right around us, and that your children and your grandchildren and all of them after them will have to live through. You may not believe this. It may sound ridiculous for me to talk about this, but we have been warned all throughout history. Okay, George Bush called it a New World Order. Agenda 21 is what the United Nations called it. And more recently, the World Economic Forum calls it a Great Reset. I mean, whatever you call it, it's all about social control. There is not just, I mean, even though we're here in Tarrant County and we're just talking about Tarrant County's issues, this is connected to a larger agenda. And people who choose not to even look into it is what upsets me, because they just write people off like me or whatever as conspiracy theorists, and they don't look into these sorts of things. But the information is still easy to find, even though it keeps getting censored and banned. You can look into what this is really about. And again, this is just one brick. The other bricks in the wall will be the vaccine that will make a lot of people sick, probably kill a lot of people, probably sterilize a lot of people.
1 minute.
Okay. And also, genetically modify. My understanding is one of these vaccines will genetically modify a lot of people. So that's an extremely dangerous road to go down if you're even considering mandating vaccines, or if you're hearing that might be an option down the road. That will be destructive. I'm pretty convinced of that. But Bill Gates would, of course, love to have us all taking that. And then, of course, contact tracing is, again, clearly about control. It's a way of basically getting us to snitch on each other and spy on each other. At least have the people do it long enough until we can hire robots, until we can get the robots and the computers in place to do it. So that's where artificial intelligence comes in. That's where 5G comes in. I mean, it's a very large plan that people are completely oblivious to. And it's clear to me because I've done enough research on this, and I've heard from enough people that I respect who have researched this. And I implore you to do your own research for your children's sake, okay? For our sake, but for all of you. I'm sure all of you have children. Consider
Mr. Perry.
what you are helping to usher in.
Thank you, Mr. Perry.
Okay.
We have two folks who have sent in and wish to make comment. Yes, Mr. Manius, if you would please read those. The first is a Francisco Latimer.
This comment is from Francisco Latimer. I'm a high school student and would like to express my concern over the mask mandate. I grew up looking forward to making my own decisions, choosing my own path, and living my own life. Instead of this, my government, which should be protecting my freedom and rights, is telling me that I effectively can't go anywhere without a mask. What's the next government mandate order I will have to follow for my own protection? Where did my rights go? Will I enjoy the same freedoms and liberty as my parents did growing up? Do I have freedom in my future? 600 characters is not enough for this issue.
Next is James Shelton.
As I watch the court sessions each week, I see many citizens voicing their opinion against the mask order. There are citizens that have communicated various reasons why they disagree with the mask mandate, and many have given very compelling reasons for their opinions. I have yet to see a single citizen speak up in favor of the mandate. Where is the support for the masks? It seems the only people in support of the mask are the judge and the health director. Wearing a mask should be decided on between a doctor and patient, not a judge without the support of the citizens. John, that's all the comments that we have at this time as it relates to this issue.
Okay, let's proceed.
One missing.
We need to.
One was missing.
Okay, we're going to take a short recess.
Ready? Perfect time.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Hyder, is everything else going okay as far as the drop-off?
Yes, sir. So far, we're getting about, I think, 500 ballots dropped off a day in person. We're picking thousands up in the mail. We have over 11,000 ballots returned as of last night's count. Over 70,000, including yesterday's mail-out, have gone out. So we're in good. It's flowing really nice, I have to say.
Okay, and then the ballot board and the signature verification committee will begin meeting.
The signature verification committee on October 14, the ballot board on October 22nd.
Okay.
So we'll start processing signatures and separating and reaching out to voters who have any kind of rejection, or at least posting it on the website by that day.
Okay.
Hyder, will you repeat those dates, please?
October 14, the signature verification committee. October 22nd, the ballot board.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we can now go to the administrator section on item A1. During this past week, we did receive another order from the governor, and this one was dated October 1st, 2020, and it amended the previous one of July 27th with one stipulation. We provided in your court communication the information that deals with that particular order. Basically, early voting for the November 3rd election will begin on Tuesday, the October 13th. Mail-in marked ballots can be dropped off at a single location to the early voting clerk beginning October 2nd through Election Day. The early voting clerk must allow poll watchers at the mail-in ballot drop-off location. Poll watchers must comply with early voting poll watcher requirements. And then finally, any marked ballot delivered in person before October 2nd should be subject to the previous July 27th proclamation. So this pretty much confirms everything that we're doing here with the single drop-off, and so that is the only order that we received this week.
And I would just add that the term poll watcher is just not anybody who wants to come in to the poll and watch. There are certain procedures that you have to go through in order to be named a poll watcher. And so, I've heard I had a couple people come up and say, well, we're going to come up and be a poll watcher. And I said, well, you can, but you're going to have to go through procedures. And I believe the parties themselves have to designate who the poll watchers are. So just, it's not something that just everybody can decide they want to do and then do.
Okay, members of the court, we can now go to item A2. This concerns actions related to the COVID-19 virus as it affects citizens, businesses, and county government operations. We have two different presentations. The first one, we're going to go and ask Guidehouse. Rachel, are you on?
Yes, DK, we're here.
Okay. Are you going to be presenter this morning?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Can we get started?
Yes.
Okay, great. So good morning, Judge and Commissioners. As GK mentioned, this is Rachel, and I'll be presenting our deck today. So we can advance to the project status slide. We'll get started. And on this slide, we'll start with week 9/28 to 10/2, which is last week. We continued our ongoing communication with stakeholders. We continue to monitor grant opportunities that would be a good match for Tarrant County, as well as monitoring Treasury guidance. We touched last week on the new payroll guidance in our update to the court last week, and the county is in the process of finalizing its payroll guidance, both internally for its departments as well as for municipalities that receive CRF funds. So that will continue to be worked on this week. Also last week, we continued to review the county's COVID-19 expenditures, as well as to provide support to the ILA distribution program and the NGO assistance program. We also continue to provide ad hoc eligibility reviews and also to support the FEMA project worksheet. Moving on to our current key activities. These are in chronological order on the slide, but I'm just going to group them by NGO and ILA separately so it's a bit clearer how they all relate together. For the NGO assistance program, last week the county and Guidehouse hosted a webinar for NGOs participating in the program to review the applicable federal requirements, and as well as the county reporting templates and the county's reimbursement processes. And for that webinar, we worked with the county to develop reporting templates and a presentation slide deck that walked through these points, including some step-by-step tutorials for certain aspects of the process. And for the ILA distribution program, last week the county and Guidehouse continued the weekly office hours for municipalities, focusing on reviewing the new Treasury guidance, which entailed documenting eligible payroll expenses. In preparation for the county to begin closing out its grant agreements with the municipalities, we also drafted a mid-program status update form, which will let the county know if municipalities at risk for potentially not incurring its CRF funds by the deadline, which is December 30th. As well as a de-obligation closeout form that would accompany a municipality's final report to the county and verify if any funds will be returned to the county. In preparation for this week, we drafted the weekly newsletter for municipalities to stay on top of deadlines and reminders. And we also drafted the presentation for this week's office hours, which will be on Wednesday. Moving on to the week of October 5th to October 9th, I'll just do a brief overview here to avoid repetition. In the upcoming week, the Guidehouse team will continue to move forward with a number of ongoing tasks with an emphasis on providing support to the FEMA PW, the ILA distribution program, and the NGO assistance program. Our areas for discussion today are the pillars of focus and the county spend update. Any questions on this slide before we move on? Okay, so if not, we can move on to the Tarrant County Pillars of Focus, which is the next slide. And I'll just touch on some of the new items on this slide, as many of these items you've seen before. But at this time, the county has completed, for its Small Business Assistance Grant Program, completed its application review, final determination, and awards for the current round of the Small Business Program. And as we mentioned earlier, the NGO program conducted a webinar last week to assist awardees in effectively fulfilling the federal and county requirements for the program. Any questions on this slide? If not, we can move on to the next slide, which will cover the county's grants. There have not been any new awards since last week, so in total there are about $229 million in grant funds that have already or will soon be received by the county. Up top, of course, we have in green the Coronavirus Relief Fund, which covers a lot of the pillars that we'll be discussing, as well as all of the multiple grants below, which are restricted grants that the county is also using to support its expenditures related to the coronavirus relief response. There have been new expenditures against these grants, and we are going to capture those on the next slide. Any questions here before we move on?
I guess the one question, when is the next time that we have to provide a reporting to the federal government? Have we already done that?
As far as it relates to CRF?
Yes, with regards to the CRF funds. I know we did one in, was it the first part of September or something? Russell looks like he's getting ready to come up and enlighten me.
Yes, it is a quarterly reporting process, but if Russell, if you want to chime in there, I'll let you do so.
October the 13th, I understand, is what has been relayed. So, and this is a more detailed report, is that correct?
That's just the monthly, the standard monthly report.
So how many,
Could Russell please respond to the mic? I can't hear anything.
Yeah, I got him coming forward. He's trying to.
Thank you.
How many reports have we prepared and submitted thus far regarding the CARES Act money?
I believe the auditor's office has been submitting the monthly and required quarterly reports. The last large report that we had to submit, Tarrant County had to submit, was a second submittal of the June 30th report. They made us submit it twice based on changes in OIG guidance that required us to do it. And so I believe we'll have a September 30th report that we'll have to submit in the coming weeks, but I don't have the exact date for that, but we are submitting monthly reports.
Can we get copies of those? Every time we submit a report, could the court members get a copy of those reports?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions on this slide before we move on? Okay, so if not, we can move on to the final slide, which brings together the county's revenue and expenses. Beginning with FEMA PA, as we mentioned in previous weeks, the county has submitted its first project worksheet, of which 75% is allocated to FEMA PA and 25% is allocated to the relief fund, which constitutes the required local match. So in the FEMA PA section, you'll see that 75% portion here under earmarked. In addition, we estimate the county has about $17 million in additional eligible expenses. At this time, the county estimates that it will not have additional FEMA PA expenses among its expenses that are incurred on September 15th or afterwards. So after that date, FEMA has limited the types of eligible work in eligible facilities where expenses can be incurred and reimbursed by FEMA. Moving on to CRF, the county has spent $86 million from its direct distributions, and separately we estimate there are an additional $8.8 million is CRF eligible. Also shown here under eligible expenses is the 25% local match that I mentioned that is required for FEMA PA. The county still has about $85 million in budgeted CRF funds related to the pillars, and leaving an estimated $27.8 million to be allocated. Finally, the county has been awarded about $19 million in additional federal funds, which we saw in the previous slide, and these are separate from FEMA and CRF, and of which this amount, the county has spent about $4.3 million, leaving $15.2 yet to be spent. So in total, the county has spent $123 million, with about $100 million earmarked and leaving about $27 million for. Any questions on this slide or in other elements of the presentation?
Rachel, under the relief fund part, on what I'm seeing, I'm not able to expand it, but some of the text is overlapped. So if you go to the relief fund square where the pie chart's in green, it has the remaining, and I see the dollar figure, but then if you go just underneath that, I can't really tell what that says.
I see. Okay, so we'll make sure to get those closer to the middle, and also make sure that we have those lead lines so you know what the different text, or which sections the different text is referring to. We'll make sure to get that next week.
Okay.
Any other questions on the presentation or anything else?
If you go back to where your part about the FEMA PA, I was a bit confused about the reference about the December date, but it was December 15th, if I heard that correctly, different than the date for, obviously, for CRF. Can you repeat that part?
Sure. So as of September 15th, which of course was last month, FEMA made some restrictions on where eligible expenses can be incurred, and that means, so for example, an expense like PPE can only be eligible for FEMA if it's done in the course of eligible types of emergency work, or if it's done in a facility where emergency work is being performed, and that limits the number of places and types of work where PPE would be eligible to be covered by FEMA, if that makes sense. So it's thinking more about certain public medical facilities or things like that, if there's hospitals or public safety, those types of areas where, you know, PPE might still be eligible, but in others, it likely would not be eligible.
Okay, and so then is there a different deadline for the FEMA spend then? Did I understand that part? Or somewhere I feel like I was a little bit confused about a deadline.
I'm sorry, is there a different deadline for it?
Is there a different deadline for the FEMA spend?
Oh, no, so it's still the same. So the county will be submitting its project worksheet, and each project worksheet is just a compilation of costs related to a specific type of activity or, you know, a group of activities that are related, and it submits a narrative along with those. And so the county has submitted its first one, and it's going to submit its second one when it has those costs and narratives ready. It's still working with FEMA and TDM on kind of getting through this first one and making sure that it's, as much as possible, the county is getting the funds that it would like to receive for that project worksheet. So there's no, in terms of, you know, deadlines between the September 15th or not, to my understanding, there's no difference. It's just a change in the types of expenses that are eligible to be included on that project worksheet.
Okay, I understand now. Thank you.
So one of the things that Rachel brought up is, as it relates to the PPE, while we may not be able to get reimbursement from FEMA on some of the PPE that we have purchased and distributed, we can still use the CRF funds to pay for that.
Obviously, the goal is to make sure that we use all the CARES funds prior to December the 30th, because I think we've got a lot of folks out there who still need help.
And we've got, and when we get to the second part where we're reporting, yes, you're exactly right, Judge. So, but in that same manner, you might see on that slide here, that last multiple grant expenditures, those expenditures, and I believe we have probably close to $10 million left on there. Those expenditures do not necessarily have to be made by December 30th. They, like CDBG, COVID related, that's up to 2022. So, are there any questions for Guidehouse? So, members of the court, what I'd like to do is just simply give you a very brief update on our 4 pillars, Care for Tarrant program updates. Some good news as it relates to the Small Business Assistance Program. Ms. Tidwell, you want me to make this announcement, or would you? Okay. So, as of today, we've now handled all of those applications that have come through on the first drive on this, and we have handled and approved 2,194 applications for a value of $17.6 million. So the auditor's office and our office and all of those that have been participating in that have done an excellent job on this. It's been very, very difficult, but we're continuing to move forward. on that particular item. On the rental assistance, we have, as I reported last week, we're staffing up to a greater extent to move this a little faster. We're going to have one court action later on that's going to deal with rental assistance. But basically what we have now is that we have received 1,162 applications. 599 of those have been approved. The others are either denied or in the process of being worked. We've made a distribution or of at least $1.9 million, and there's a potential of up to 3.8 on those elements on those particular items. The NGO program, we have another court item today on that, but with the NGO program, we have gone through all the applications, and some of these applications are ineligible. Some have been sent to the city of Fort Worth. We have awarded or encumbered at least 65 programs for the 150 that came through that cycle. We've distributed or encumbered $5.3 million as relates to that. Those are the ones that have come through the portal. There have been others that we have brought to you directly, ones like the Clayton Youth Enrichment Program, the YMCA. We're going to have another one on this agenda today. All total with those that you've already approved, not counting the one we're going to talk about today, is almost $6.4 million. You're going
Does that include the 5.3 or it's?
Yes, it includes the 5.3.
So that was 6 point what?
It's 6.394. And so there was, I believe, the Housing Authority, that the Housing Finance Commission that you all are part of. You all have assigned 7 of those, 6 or 7 that we're going to be working yet. As I said, we have a fairly large one on the agenda today, not one of those 7, but a different one. This is the Arlington Mansfield YMCA that we're going to ask you to approve. And so the NGO program is going to continue. It won't be through the portal, but it'd be a direct request to the county, those that we just talked about and more. We also have, as it relates to the local partnership, we've provided funds to all the municipalities that in the county. We're going to have another big ask that we're going to be bringing forward to you in the very near future. We're trying to tie down the numbers. This deals with MHMR, and that should be in the range of about $4 million. So with that, and so that's the report on the status of our programs. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
GK, I just wanted to say thanks to everyone, my colleagues, and also the other department heads and your staff for all of their work on our COVID Relief Our Cares for Tarrant thus far. I know that it has been quite a process for all of us, but that there has been countless hours of dedicated work to make sure that these programs work within the knowledge that we have at the time, and of course the directives and guidance from the Treasury is ever changing. I wanted to share just a few of the notes that I've received directly to my office. These 3 in particular happen to be small business owners. One says, this is from a nail salon. I'd like to thank you for letting me know about the Tarrant County Fund. I got the grant. The second is from a local photographer that says, Dear Devin and Commissioners, I wanted to take time to express my thanks for the grant money sent to help me in my business during these challenging times. Your thoughtfulness is very appreciated. The third is from a business that focuses on industrial cleaning, and it says, I want to let you know that our business was a recipient of the Small Business Assistance Grant. The funds we received have helped us continue providing products to our customers. The grant is a blessing, and we are very thankful for it. We want to thank you for being a champion for Tarrant County small business owners. We appreciate all you're doing to help us come back better as we navigate through the COVID-19 pandemic. As Tarrant County residents and as business owners, please let us know how we can help you to better serve us. So I know that so much of our discussions, especially in open court and definitely in some of the meetings and trying to work these things out, that things can get really difficult. But I did just want to encourage everyone that we are being effective. Our programs are working. Obviously, there are ways that we can improve the process for everyone involved. But I just want to help us to remember not to become weary in well-doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I would like to report on the testing yet. We team with the City of Fort Worth inside the city on the testing program. We team with the City of Arlington, and we also team with the Texas Department of Emergency Management. And over the last week, our combined efforts with our team members, we tested 6,125 individuals for COVID. This is just public testing. There are numerous private testing sites that are also available. So testing is continuing to go. The North Richland Hills, the H2O program is doing very well. Tarrant County College South Campus is doing very well also. So we continue to do testing. Members of the Court, if there's not any questions on that, we can move to item number 3. This deals with the coronavirus activity. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve an agreement between Tarrant County and Arlington Mansfield Area YMCA for unemployment supplemented related to COVID-19.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the Court, on item number 4, this also relates to the coronavirus. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve the use of self-attestations to meet documentation requirements for rental assistance through the CARES Act rental assistance program. This is for the renewal of rental assistance.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote.
I do have a question. So we're saying that if people are renewing their request, then they're just doing the self-attestation for the renewal portion. I don't know that I understand that.
They need to qualify for the initial approval, but if they're seeking additional rental support after that particular month or months, then they'll need to sign a statement basically that they're still being impacted by the coronavirus and unable to pay their rent.
Okay, very good. I understand. Thank you. I'm ready.
Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
One quick comment on that particular item. We want to thank the County Auditor's Office to working with us on this and to get the language correct on the court communications.
Thank you.
So finally, members of the court, if we can go to item number 6, which is not coronavirus related. We're requesting that the court approve an interlocal agreement between Tarrant County and the City of Fort Worth for the verification and technical reviews relating to pattern interpretation disciplines such as latent prints.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Ms. Tidwell?
We have one item we're asking the court to approve today, and that is to approve the removal of assets that are no longer on hand or belonging to the county from the county's asset management system.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. I didn't expect the list to be so large this year.
So let me address that, since most of those are in my office or in the fire marshal's office. A lot of the material or the items that you see on there were grant purchased 10, 15 years ago. The grants required that even handheld radios, disposable radios of the value of $7 to $10 have to be inventoried. A lot of this equipment was shared with, well, first of all, it's obsolete. You can see the value is zero. This was something that we shared with the fire departments. They were required to let us know when it was discontinued some of the equipment. A lot of the equipment, just because it's a $10 radio, it's a weather radio, and when it ended its useful life, it was simply thrown away. So what we're trying to do is to clean up those type of inventories.
And Mr. Mangus, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but on this list, there's not a single item for 7. Most of the items are 40, 50, 70, 754. There's not a single item under, I guess the lowest one I see appears to be $34.91.
Okay, let me take a look, Your Honor, but a lot of these were disposable. I can get you some $10 ones.
Well, I mean, here's some weather value. I mean, it says $72.15, but there's not anything on this list for less than $34. And I guess and if they're disposable, then when are we going to get to the point to where we're not having 8 pages of things that we can't find or that we've gotten rid of?
I think what's happening is that we're clearing out a lot of old items.
Well, I agree, and I thought we did that last year. And so that's why I'm very surprised to see 8 pages of stuff.
And I don't believe that what we saw last year was very much of emergency management. In fact, we're moving through the different departments and everything, and the stuff is handed out to the volunteer fire departments, to some of the other fire departments that we participate with, and we simply are unable to track it anymore.
Okay, so you made a statement in here that I want to go back to, was because I thought we cleared it up through all departments last year, and you said we're going through departments. Should I expect that next year we're going to have another department that we didn't take care of in the last 2?
That's not exactly, I wouldn't say I would agree exactly with that, because...
Okay, wait a minute. Go ahead and pull the mic down so that others can hear. Maybe your master, if that would be helpful.
So I wouldn't agree exactly that we're going through departments. Each year, the statute's very clear that the purchasing agent inventory the assets and that the auditor reconcile that inventory to the books and records. We work extensively with any and all departments who have a number of assets that cannot be identified on that listing at the time, each and every year. Last year, what caught most of our attention, I don't have photographic memory of what was on last year's list other than the large number of IT items. This year, for whatever reason, was a year that a lot of the items in the emergency management and those areas turned up. We didn't just focus on that area, no. Next year, I have no idea what you'll find, because it's going to be whatever is on the list that's inventoried and what we can or cannot identify. Again, we work with the departments. We try to help them locate and find the assets that we can't find. We don't just come in here with a list to write them off, but we are required. We need to get them off the books. We need to delete them. They do have a zero value on the books, but I don't know what next year's list will look like.
Well, my question is if we're doing this, then why didn't emergency management figure out last year they couldn't identify the assets on the list?
I can't honestly speak to that, sir.
And I mean, I guess I'd ask that question of all the departments. You look at your inventory. If you can't figure out where they are,
they would have had to shown them as being present last year. I can't answer this. They would have had to have been shown as being present on the list that was presented, that was probably a self-inventory list, or we would have been here last year talking about them, because anytime we receive the list and it shows that they're not present, then we're going to ask that they be removed if they can't be found, or unless in some instances we've had people say, could we please have a little bit more time? We still want to look for those, and so we do consider those requests as well. Again, someone else would have to speak to last year. They would have had to have been on the list as being present.
Yeah, Randy, you really shouldn't have been here today. Come forward. Yeah. So I'm looking down here
and you got a whole lot of rescue saws and a whole lot of breathing apparatuses.
Yes, sir.
So did you have these last year?
Yes, sir.
And so in 1 year, you've lost all this stuff?
I don't know on the breathing, the lost.
Okay, so
Kinda
that was a
gets
poor word, and I should have used that.
On the breathing apparatus, those bottles are good for 10 years that go with the breathing apparatuses. And part of the problems with, and that's for firefighters, and part of the problem with tracking those bottles are if they're at a fire scene and they use up their air, they take that bottle off, set it aside, and get another bottle, put it on, and go. So it's hard to track that bottle, where that bottle is. So after 10 years, it's not, it can't be retested, hydrostatic tested anymore. So that's a reason for taking them off.
You got 8 deluxe portable generators, Honda, that were all purchased in 2005. And so did we finally get rid of them in 2019? Or, I mean, when are we going to be up to date to where I don't get 8 pages of assets that we can't find anymore?
I think we're in pretty good shape now. Part of the other problem is you give equipment out to these fire departments, which we were required to do through the grant, and we had a chief at that time. Then we changed chiefs. They get rid of stuff and never know that it's theirs because it's a changeover process.
So we don't ask them we don't give them a list every year of the things that we think they got from us?
No, sir.
Why not?
We traditionally hadn't done that.
But see, that results in you traditionally going to be up here telling me why you can't find this stuff anymore.
And I think historically part of the problem is, and I've been doing this since '99, when we first started doing the grants, the product was good for 5 years, and after the 5 years, the government didn't want to know anything about it, so we left it with the fire departments. Then that changed, and there's been a lot of confusion through the state and through the federal government on that. So yes, it's I don't know that a lot of it's lost, a lot of it is broken or can't be supported anymore. I have equipment at my office that's still on my equipment list that has radioactive material in it that I can't, it costs about $1,200 a piece to destroy or get rid of those pieces of equipment that we bought back in 2005. So I have them back in a room on file at my office that these are grant-funded equipment, and they're still on my inventory that I can go to, but they're useless.
Well, I understand that, but you at least have accounted for them, and yes. I mean, at some point I would say they're useless, let's get rid of them. What I hear you saying is it'll cost us more to get rid of them than it will to hold them in a room and say they're useless.
Correct.
I don't mind that, because at least I know that they're here. I'm more concerned about the ones that, and when they become useless or when they're broken, we get rid of them. That's what this annual inventory is about.
Yes,
but I mean, and I'm sorry, you happen to be the one I could see.
Yeah, I just I just gave purchasing some grant-funded equipment that is broke, and it'll be off of my list next year. It wasn't in time. They just picked it up last week. So sometimes we get those things back, like thermal imaging cameras. We've gotten those back in the past, and they're broke from the fire departments. They can't use them anymore. We put them on the purchasing list, and they're gone. The X-ray guns or the guns that we're talking about that has a radiation, I just keep a record of that at my office. It stays on my inventory, but everybody knows where those products are in case one day I'm not here. They'll know what that situation is. Some equipment breaks. Some of it is so old that it's not supported anymore. So
I understand that 100%. What this says is, this is 8 pages of assets that were not found. It doesn't mean they were broke. It doesn't mean they were in an office behind you. That means we couldn't find them. And that's what I'm trying to get to the bottom of. If it's broke, we need to get it off the inventory because it's broke. But what this says is this is the inventory we couldn't find, and we're taking it off the inventory. Not because it's broke, not because it's too old, not because it was away. And so from here on, I'm making a general comment, not one just to you. But, you know, I said this last year. If this was going to happen again this year, I thought we were at the end of it. And yet I get 8 pages of stuff that we can't find. And I'd say this to every department out here and everybody that's listening. We're going to do something to where we're not looking at 8 pages of stuff we can't find, because some of this stuff, you know, a generator can walk. If we got 6 generators or 8 generators that have walked away, then we got a problem. And that is about $2,200 per generator. Now, maybe they're in the fire departments and you just didn't get it. But if we're going to track it on our inventory, then we each year need to figure out where it is. And if the fire departments have gotten rid of it, then we need to do that, and we need to hold the fire department accountable for where did it go. And I'm sorry you happen to be. You won't, probably next year when this item's on the agenda, you might miss that meeting. But I really would like for this to come to an end the self-contained breathing apparatuses, you got a whole bunch of them. I mean, you explained that at least a little bit, but I'm assuming they don't just take the can out and just leave it wherever the fire was and don't worry about picking it up at the end of it.
Oh, no, sir. No, they're continuing
So we still got them.
until they're not there anymore and they're outdated.
Well, see, that's the other thing. If they're outdated, then bring them in and say outdated, and we hadn't lost them. We just say they're no longer usable.
With the bottles, a lot of times the fire departments, when they go to purchase new bottles, not from us, but when they go to purchase new bottles, well, the manufacturer will take those bottles, take them off the fire department's hands so it's gone instead of giving them back to us. The harnesses that they're in are out of date, so some of them are given back to the manufacturer. Sometimes the fire departments just get rid of them. So some of those go back
Your Honor,
to.
we understand what you're saying. We're trying as hard as we can on some of these, and it's just.
I think
I understand.
It's an issue of whenever if we're going to. We have been serving as the grant administrator for a lot of funds that come through emergency management that we distribute to our smaller departments, and we distribute to our departments in the county. Also, a good example, these weather alarm radios that are
And we got 3 pages of those.
yeah, and you know, I have a feeling that every department in this county received at least 1, maybe 2 of those. And for some reason, we can't find them anymore. You know, they're not a high dollar item. If this was not a grant funded item, it would probably be some type of consumable that wouldn't even be on an inventory list.
Yeah, I got at least one of them in my office, but I don't know whether we have it inventoried or not. But I guess I'm just going to say is if we're going to put it on here to inventory, and now I'm looking back there at emergency management, I guess what I'd say is know who you gave them to, and then on an annual basis say, okay, let's verify we got them. And if we're not going to do that, then let's not put them on an inventory to begin with. And if we're required to put them on an inventory, then in my mind, we're required to account for them.
Okay.
It's just that simple.
Thank you, Randy.
I share the judge's concerns. I would add that there was an item on the list. It's on the very first page, a little bit beyond halfway down for the Precinct 2 garage. And in checking with my team, apparently that this item is accounted for, and so it's on this list in error. So I'm not sure who can speak to that or have it removed from the list.
Commissioner, if your person in your office, Commissioner, if the person in your office will get with my office, we'll correct that.
Okay.
To either record its disposal if you want to dispose of it, or if you still have it and use it, then we'll make certain that it does not get deleted from the fixed asset list.
Okay. As I understand, it was part of an auction in 2018, which preceded my time. So we should not have it. At least it's not within my garage. But we'll get with your.
So one of the things that happens, just so you know, in the auction, if it goes to auction, but we can't find the paperwork where it was actually sold at auction, then we still don't really know what happened to it. We may even have a signature from your office showing that you turned it in to go to auction, but we should have that on the auction proceeds for us to be able to say it was actually sold at auction. And we do a much better job in listing out those individual items, but I do know there were some on this list that we looked repeatedly through the auction receipts and could not find them, and so that may also be the case with this item.
Okay, thank you.
So, Jack, are you actually preparing the list that then goes to Renee and she compares it against the inventory and then generates what's not here?
Yes. I mean, the statute again is clear that the purchasing agent does the inventory, provides it to the auditor, and the auditor has to reconcile that to what's in SAP.
Okay.
So once we're through reconciling it, talking to all the departments, trying to figure out exactly what's where, when, and how, we prepare this list to remove them from the books and records.
So, okay.
There's a lot of work that goes into creating this
And
list.
I know that there is. I'm not questioning that, but it just,
So yes, it would have been on the list.
somebody in Jack's office goes out and inventories and determines that
No.
these are,
No, you have to remember that most departments self-inventory. Christie in Jack's department does a lot of inventory, and he can speak to whatever he looks at, but a lot of this comes from the department.
but again, so what's going to happen is somebody in your area is sending out the way it used to be, and I can only remember the way it used to be, and we'll someday forget that. But we'd get an inventory sheet every year that said, here's what you got. Check it off, and if you don't got it, tell us what happened to it, or tell us so that we can reconcile it. So I'm assuming you send something to Randy that
Yes.
says he's got 8 generators, and he says, nope, ain't got them.
In 1999 or 96, I forget what did you say, 99, this was not a focus in the county. I think we as a county failed, Mr. Manius, to properly take this seriously. As your current purchasing agent, I feel more comfortable with the inventory list than I ever have before. IT's all in. Mr. Manius, in his letter, in the backup documentation, made the statement that emergency management are changing procedures to make the folks accountable for what we give to them. To me, the sin was years ago. We didn't take it seriously enough as a county, all of us. And I think we're there now.
Well, and that's fine, but I thought we were there last year.
Well, I was surprised to see the list. I've known I would say if you have stuff that's defective, we need to get rid of it and we can sell it. If it's sold, we have record of it. Everything. I think you'll see a much better rendition next year because people take it seriously. They know it's a focus. And I think we've come a long way from when we started with this process.
But is my premise correct that to begin this process off, you send something to the departments that says, here's what, of the inventory, here's what we show you got?
That are fixed assets yet, not low dollar assets, which each department keeps
Well,
themselves.
but somewhere in here, we got 3 pages of $72.15 radios. So how did we determine that we got 3 pages to write off if somebody didn't send to emergency management something that says you got 72 radios and They said, no, we've only got
From my
0.
understanding, and the person who works for Jack, I don't think Christie's in the room, we start out, we work with Christie to extract everything that's in SAP. And we provide that list to Christie, and then she works off of that list, sending it out to the departments, whatever her process is for how she does that. And then we get something back. And so from that standpoint, some of these lower dollar assets, they are they're not capitalized, but they're in the tracking. And again, I'm not the detailed person either, but they're on the list as a tracking item, and they go out. And quite honestly, to some extent, what happens and how it gets reviewed at the department at different times, I can't speak to, but when it comes back not on the list, for whatever reason, then our process is the same. So each and every year, we do pretty much the same thing with what we've received. If the list goes out and the department doesn't do anything, as has happened with other departments in the past, then the list comes back and says everything's there, and I don't have any way of knowing that they're not there, nor does Jack. Because we have a system that relies on the departments to ascertain the accuracy of their list, because I know I signed that list. I'm personally responsible for the assets that the court has entrusted in my care. And so it is about the departments taking seriously, making certain that whatever's on that list they have, whether it's IT, whether it's the auditor's office, whether it's emergency management, whether it's facilities. Everyone's treated the same, I'm certain, right, Jack?
Absolutely.
So with that said, until the departments all look at it with an eye of detail, then it's the year that the department, I guess, looks at it and finally says, no, we don't have this, because that's the time that I have to come here. And so I can't tell you whether I'm going to come here, as I said earlier, because it's going to depend on if next year it's the county clerk that all of a sudden, I'm not accusing Mary Louise of anything or whatever, but it would be when she went and looked, and maybe her people looked harder next year than they did last year, and they might find some things that they don't really know where they went. But it is the departments that are self-certifying for the most case.
I just want to be sure that the departments are getting something that says, I got 180 radios. Now you woke Mary Louise up, so here she comes.
I know.
So we do get the list from Jack's office, from Lisa Hendricks, is that her name? Christy. Lisa Willis is in charge of our inventory. She receives that list. Lisa personally goes around. We used to have other people do it, but they changed it back to department heads. She will go around and look at every single fixed asset. She brings it to me. I have to sign it. So you're getting signatures from your department heads and elected officials saying, I looked at this list, everything's here, and believe me, if something's missing, I have that conversation at my level because I know we're going to be at this level. So that's how it works for us. They send a list, our staff looks at it, I have to sign that to get it back to you to say, Judge, I personally believe everything is accounted for. Lisa has double checked it, and it's just the honor system, and if we're missing something, you'll be the first one to know.
Okay.
I don't want to do this again next year. And so I guess I'm going to say to all you department heads, you sign something, you either got it or you don't. But if next year we come in, you think it's been a long little show today, next year I'm going to be holding you accountable for what you say you've lost. Because if your inventory isn't accurate right now, then next year you're going to be explaining that you've lost something. So you may want to go back and pull out the one you turned in this year and dust it off.
We can't make them count it. We can't make them tell us the truth. There's a lot of work that goes into it, but I think the message is out. And I'll say again, I wish we would have been this intense 25 years ago. I doubt you'll see Chris up here again. I doubt you see Randy or others. And we can't make them do it. We give it the best we got. But I do feel more comfortable today than I have in the last 25 years. And thank you for chewing us out because we needed it.
You're welcome.
I was going to say, do we have a motion? We have a motion and a second. All we just need to do is vote. Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
motion passes unanimously. You're not going to want to be here next year if it's 8 pages long. And if your name's on the list, I'd be sure not to be here.
Move to receive and file personnel agenda.
Second.
Second.
Please vote. Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We have one additional item. It's item 2. We're asking the court to approve an out-of-class pay extension for the tax office. Ms. Burgess is requesting an extension through January 18th of 2021, the details of which are outlined in your court communique. We're estimating the cost to be around $6,100. However, that cost will be fully offset by salary savings.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vinnie.
Sir, we have 2 items for your consideration this afternoon. First item is a request for approval to submit a letter of intent between Tarrant County Public Health and University of North Texas Health Science Center to collaborate and promote knowledge to action in COVID-19 prevention and engagement. They got a grant called the SEAL. I believe it's Community Engagement and Learning related to COVID-19. And with your approval, we are intending to help them out in this effort, and we'll receive $44,000 for them in return.
Move approval.
Second.
A motion second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Second item, we're requesting approval for an agreement with eClinicalWorks for software license in support of a cloud-based electronic medical records and practice management system on behalf of Tarrant County Public Health.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Mr. Beecham.
We have 3 items for your consideration today. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for bid 2020-200, annual contract for fence installation, demolition, and repairs for facilities management. Recommendation would be to award a per enterprise basis, hourly labor rate, market price for parts, awarding to the primary and secondary vendors is shown in your court communique.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 2 is also a bid award recommendation for bid 2020-209, signing a contract for HVAC air filters, filter replacement services, again for facilities management. A recommendation would be to award a per enterprise basis, discount off list price, awarded to the primary, secondary, and alternate vendors as shown in court communique.
Move for approval. Second.
Second.
Well, at least they're in
I
tune.
can run with it.
Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Last item in regards to bid 2020-193. This was a bid for Precinct 1 fuel canopy repairs. We were recommending rejection of the 3 proposals that we received, asking that we be allowed to rebid with revised specifications. 1 proposal did not sign the addendum. Second one was over budget. Third one did not meet the specifications.
Move approval.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion in 3 seconds. Please vote. Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Commissioner Brooks, I believe you have a interlocal agreement.
Yes, sir. This is something that we have worked on for years regarding Pearl Ranch Road, which is owned by the Army Corps of Engineers. I move approval of this challenge partnership agreement, 8K1 A and B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion
Actually,
passes.
it's 9K1 A and B.
Okay, 1A and B. Motion passes unanimously. Appointments today. I believe that Grapevine, John Michael Franks, who has been representing Grapevine on the T board, has resigned, and we have had a request from the mayor there, Bill Tate, to replace him with Paul Slechta, and I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion, but I'd like to know from the district attorney's office what the requirements are for our board appointees to the T-board. I know.
Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Are there any other appointments? Then with that, we will look for a motion to approve the claims, including the addendum.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Please vote. Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items.
So, members of the court, we have one additional briefing item. That's the flu vaccine briefing. You might recall that last week we promised you that we would come back with some additional details. And so we've been working on this, and this is what we would like to brief you on today. First of all, we need to be very careful as we move forward with the immunizations, and that we know that pharmacies, doctor's office, various health clinics, they've already placed their orders, very large orders, to the pharmas that are producing the vaccines, and they've received theirs just like we've received ours in public health. There's a lag time, if you will, when ordering vaccines. And so the question then becomes, does our market itself have enough vaccines to satisfy the demand for flu vaccines? We know every year in the Tarrant County market that thousands of units are basically having to be thrown away because you pre-order them when they begin to make the vaccine. And so we want to continue to work with our various groups to see what that availability is. However, we have...
Let me comment.
Yes, sir.
I can only speak for myself, but I have not had an in-person visit with my primary care physician since March. Every visit I have had has been a telemedicine visit, a virtual visit. I don't know of a way to give a flu shot virtually.
So if you, for example, in my pharmacy at Tom Thumb, I asked them the other night if they still had plenty of vaccine available, and they said absolutely. They are not. That is a big distribution point, not just for the entire Tom Thumb series and Safeway series here in the Metroplex. And they're telling me at least that they still have plenty of vaccine, and they're not seeing any uptick on people coming in to get shots. But in order to make sure that we have enough vaccines to handle those that are uninsured. What we intend to do is to work with purchasing. In fact, purchasing has been working with us. We are going to order a total of 10,000 units, 5,000 from one manufacturer that can deliver by mid-October, and 5,000 from another one that will deliver late October into November. So those are the lead times. We're going to be working, we've already contacted JPS and the FQHCs so that can be, along with our public health clinics, that can be a distribution point for those vaccines, and we'll market those whenever we get the vaccines in. As we see the consumption of those vaccines and the amount of vaccines that these different entities have already ordered and have in stock, if we see that there's a depletion of those and we may run out, we'll probably put in another order. But the prices on the vaccines for the first 5,000, because they're different types of vaccines, the first one is about $48.29 per unit. The second one, the next 5,000 is $15.85. It's a different type of vaccine, and but it's also a longer lead time. So we wanted to order 5,000 so we would get them in as quickly as possible. So if there is a shortage, then we would be able to supplement that shortage with the 5,000 units.
What are the different types of vaccine that you're ordering?
The flu block is the $48.29 one, and the Aflura is one which we typically purchase, is the $15.85 one. That's about six.
Is one of those quadrivalent and the other is not?
That's a question I don't know. Then you might be able to help me with that.
I believe both are quadrivalent. The only difference is the flu block is the egg-free, so it's designed for people with allergies, but they had a large quantity available, so we can get that quickly. And there are two other options, the Afluria and there's a Flucelvax. So Flucelvax is, again, a cellular-based vaccine, not grown in eggs. I believe that one's actually mid-November, and then Afluria would be late November if we order that. So we'll kind of work on the timeline with these vendors to see.
They're all quadrivalent?
Yes, sir, they're all quadrivalent. Yes, sir.
Do we have some for us old farts?
So we ordered some high-dose vaccine. Again, it's a guessing game on when they arrive. I believe that we ordered some doses and some was already given at our county.
Well, I know I got an old version for Tarrant County, but I'm just wondering, in a part of these things that we're ordering, are we also ordering some of the ones for the older adults?
A high dose is not easily found right now because the way this works is they order a pre-book in February and March, and then they deliver in like September and October. When we start ordering in October, we may not get it, or we may get it like in February and the demand goes away. So it's very hard to sort of come now to make a bigger order.
But if as I understand what you're saying, it may very well be that some of these companies that we're going to partner with might have that, and then they would just bill us for the cost of those vaccines.
So we're going to be reaching out to those to see if there's a way we can partner with them. We have not partnered with, have not had an official contact with them yet, but that's our intent to do that.
Okay. And as I understand, Commissioner, I know that in our calls on Monday, one of the things that the physicians are basically saying is they're really trying to get out and encourage folks to start going back to their doctors for the annual checks as well as for the immunizations, flu shots and things along that line. So you're right, most people are not going to their doctors, but I think one of the things that we do need to be stressing is flu shots, whether you go to your doctor or someplace else, immunizations, and getting back into the annual checks and things along that type of lines.
And a lot of doctors simply tell you go down to your pharmacy and get the shot.
Many of them do. That's exactly right.
It's not who gives the shot, it's the fact that the shot gets given.
Exactly. Good point.
And that's our report.
Okay. That's it?
I do have a request, GK, is that we, I know that there was a mention of that this is an iterative process, but I would just like to make that part of a weekly update or maybe bi-weekly update, whatever makes sense, along with the current and emerging health issues.
We'll do that, Commissioner. In fact, after today, since we wanted to brief the court first about the purchase of the vaccines, we're going to be placing that order this week.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we will recess our open meeting, proceed to close to discuss items exempt under Section 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code. Having returned from our closed session, there being no business to conduct at this time, we stand adjourned. Did you see, you probably hadn't seen the